Welcome back to another AFC North update. This one after week 12 of the NFL season. Some things have changed greatly in this division for the past couple weeks, but the standings are back to where they have been for the majority of this season. Starting with the still division-leading Baltimore Ravens, improving their record to 9-3 overall, 3-2 in the division. They picked up a win on Sunday Night Football by the final score of 20-10 over the LA Chargers. Something I said last week was that if the Ravens defense was able to limit this Chargers offense, then this probably should be a comfortable W. And Baltimore did get the win, but I was a little bit surprised by how the offense looked pretty not so good against this Charger defense. The Ravens, like pretty much every team in this division, have confused me in certain weeks as they head into their bye week after their win over the Chargers. They have a tremendous 9-3 record, and they will be atop the AFC North once again, no matter what next week. They can pretty much look to not only the playoffs, but they can look to try to clinch the top seed in the AFC and get a bye week and skip the wild card round altogether. And we have seen them as a team kind of put all the pieces together and play a dominant 60 minutes over some teams, like early in the season against the Browns. You had those games against the Lions and the Seahawks where they look like an unbeatable force. But then games like this kind of get people looking at them with a little bit of a side eye. I mean, we know the defense is legit. Holding the Chargers to 10 points isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world. And some guys on the offense can definitely get healthier with a bye week, like Odell Beckham Jr. has been dealing with injuries, it seemed like all season, and a bye week for him could definitely help things out. Marlon Humphrey should definitely be using the bye week to get healthier as well. Although somebody who can't get healthier this season is David Ojabo, who is now getting season-ending surgery. They hope he's ready by next training camp. You also have like Tyus Bowser, who might be coming back. I mean, John Harbaugh saying he has an angry knee, so trying to get the swelling down a little bit. But, you know, the Ravens, they brought in guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Van Noy, and Owe has also been pretty good on that defensive line to help out. And obviously Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, they speak for themselves as far as what they do for the Ravens defense as a duo. So, you know, the Ravens are definitely in a good spot after their victory heading into their late bye week. I know I do sound maybe a little bit down on the Ravens after their victory, but make no mistakes, when it comes down to the results on Sundays, all that matters is that you get a win, and the Ravens definitely a top team in that regard after this week. Then you have these now second place, once again, Pittsburgh Steelers, improving their record to 7-4 overall and a 3-1 divisional record. They get a 16-10 win over the Bengals, and despite putting up only 16 points, the offense looked a lot better with Matt Canada not calling the plays. They managed to put up 400 yards of offense. Not the low scoring can be explained by having to settle for field goals and also fumbling in the red zone once as well. It looks like in that regard, you definitely want to convert on more of your chances to get some more points, because, 16 points usually won't be all that much. But when you have a defense that the Steelers have, that's definitely going to be 16 points. You can definitely make that work if that Steelers defense is having a dominant game like they usually are having. But the offense did actually seem to have a rhythm to it as far as being able to move the ball down field goals. We've seen games where the Steelers offense looks completely dead, and they definitely had a bit more of a pulse to them in this one. And then you add in a Bengals team without Joe Burrow and Jake Browning turning into a pumpkin in the second half, and that's going to be a win for the team. Now, trailing 7-3 at the half, and Cincy driving to start the second half before that interception kind of swung things the Steelers in the Steelers' direction. Not that great, but the Steelers have been doing stuff like this all year, where I've been spending all season saying that this team hasn't really put it all together. They're only winning ugly, but the fact is they're winning more than they're losing, and that's going to be very successful a lot of the times in the NFL. Obviously, right now they're sitting at 7-4 in a wild card spot, which I think that is way better than what most people expected after they got smacked around by the 49ers in week 1. So I guess you have to give credit to the Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin and that coaching staff for keeping this team every year somehow, some way above, and in this case, well above that 500 line, and keeping them in these playoff races. And looking at their schedule, that record could get a lot better in the upcoming weeks. They do have the Cardinals coming up this week, who are a lot better now that Kyler Murray is there. They do have some offensive threat there, but that is still very a winnable game for Pittsburgh. And then the 3 games after that, they have the Patriots, who are a complete disaster this year. The Colts, the Colts might be a little feisty, but you can definitely get a win over them. And the Bengals again without Joe Burrow, and we saw how they looked this week. That's a pretty favorable slate of teams that they have coming up for Pittsburgh. Then moving on to the once again third place Browns, dropping to 7-4 overall with a 3-2 divisional record. They lost 29-12 to the Broncos, which is at least a scoregami, so I guess that could be a silver lining there. I made a video on this game on Sunday. It was a game where pretty much nothing went right for Cleveland. You have, Greg Newsome getting cooked by Sutton for most of the game. Players were loose with the ball. Stefanski calling a very ill-advised end-around reverse to start the fourth quarter that was fumbled, that the Broncos recovered, pretty much killing all hope in that game when it was already going to be an uphill battle to try to make a comeback with P.J. Walker at the helm after DTR got hurt. Russell Wilson had a throwback performance. He was very good for Denver last week, and there were more injuries to a few key guys. One of them that I just mentioned, DTR, already a backup quarterback. He's in concussion protocol, and if he doesn't clear early this week, even if he does clear Friday or Saturday, I'm not sure if they want to throw him in with only one or even no practice time. It might be time for Joe Flacco to take some snaps at quarterback for the Browns, as I think they're trying to avoid P.J. Walker like the plague at this point as far as him being under center. That's why you bring in a guy like Joe Flacco, just in case somebody gets hurt or try to mentor DTR, even compete for a starting position. But that decision has to be made quickly, in my opinion. I don't want to see him and PJ Walker splitting reps with the first team late into the week. If it's not going to be DTR, make sure you have a plan of who you're planning on starting and then practice that way for the rest of the week. And then Amari Cooper also left that game after he got a helmet to the ribs on a tackle. Doesn't seem to be any major damage. Hopefully he can be back with some minimal pain. If Amari Cooper were to miss any time, that would be a major blow to an offense that's already struggling to get things going with their situations. Then Myles Garrett left the game in a sling, something that I did not realize in my initial review of the game, saying he heard something pop, and that looked like it might suck, but the MRI results, they don't seem to be showing any long-term damage. He's currently listed as day-to-day. Not a ton known about the status of his shoulder at this point. He did not practice today, but Kevin Stefanski said that he feels confident that he'll be good to go against the Rams. I certainly hope so, because Myles Garrett obviously elevates the ceiling of how that defense and certainly that defensive line can play on game days. But no matter who's injured or not, they play the Rams next week. And, despite the recent injury woes, the Browns also sit at 7-4. They're also in a wild card spot, so they currently control their own destiny as far as advancing to the playoffs on the backs of their own results. Like I just said, they play against the Rams this week in LA. That's not going to be an easy out, no matter who the Browns have in or out for that one. So they definitely have to keep these wins coming. They're not in a spot where they can just kind of loaf around for a few weeks and pick it up later in the season. But that leads us to the still in the basement Cincinnati Bengals, 5-6 overall, now 0-4 in the division, and it's looking more and more like the season is over at this point after they lose to the Steelers. Jake Browning showing some signs of life early, but just when things were going well early in the second half, they're up 7-3. They get the ball back. They're driving down the field. He throws a pick, I believe, on a third down. That play basically putting momentum squarely in the favor of the Steelers, and it didn't really swing back until it was too late in that game. Now, they were able to make it a one-score game with about 2 minutes left, but they had used up all their timeouts. They had to rely on an onside kick that they just weren't able to get because the NFL made onside kicks even more difficult to receive. And for the first time now, they've fallen below 500 for the first time since after week 5. And it doesn't feel like that record has much of a chance of getting better anytime soon, as they get to play the Jaguars on Monday Night Football this week. And, when you have an offense that's relied on the passing game, and that franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow's gone down, and a run game that hasn't shined a whole lot. I know Zach Taylor has gotten some flack for lack of usage of the run game, but I feel like even when Zach Taylor has leaned into the run game, it hasn't really shined all that much. That puts a lot of pressure on that defense, and the defense, I think, has been pretty solid. They did a good job of holding the Steelers to field goals, and that red zone turnover that I mentioned when I talked about Pittsburgh, that certainly helped things as far as keeping that game close and letting the Bengals have that 7-3 lead at the end of the first half. But I just think the Jaguars have a better offense than the Steelers, even though Pittsburgh was without Matt Canada. I feel like the Jaguars have a more well put together offense. And if the Bengals offense can't garner any run support, that defense is going to break eventually with how things are in the NFL right now. It's just a tough time for the Bengals at this moment. And that'll do it for this video. Thank you for watching this AFC North update. If you did make it this far into it, leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more like it. I do one of these about every week or so. Sometimes it's Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes it's Monday, whatever. But once again, thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next one.